In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create this filter. Let's do it. Hello again. So we learned a lot in the last video. We got to know the studio a little better. So let's jump into our first filter. This is going to be really exciting. We're going to start with a simple one, but with some advanced stuff already. We're going to apply physics. We're going to apply an animated overlay on top, and we're going to apply a glow effect. So our first filter is going to be a halo with volumetric lighting on top to give some ambience. So let's start with the model. Okay, so how do we start a filter? So we're going to provide a couple of files, but mainly you will be using one of these two. The original face.fbx, it contains a dense mesh. That's what we call it. It's a dynamic mesh that will adjust to your face. So it looks like this. Okay, so a little trick just to make it easier, I usually rotate it 25 degrees just to have a better perspective so it looks more orthogonal. So from here you can create any kind of effects. First thing that comes to mind is to do a painting, makeup, deformations. We'll learn more about that in the next video. You can use this as a reference. If you want to do sunglasses, you will need a reference of size and position. So this is perfect for that. And then you can use this as a occluder. So this is perfect to start a new filter. In this case, we're not going to need this mesh. We're going to need the other file. We're going to need the occluder head. So this file, this is a really simple mesh that roughly represents the size of your skull. So you can use it as a reference as well. You can model hats. You can create sunglasses using this mesh because it's going to be super simple to use as an occluder. So in this case, we will need a simple occluder. This one will do because it represents roughly the size of your skull. So from here, I will import the model that I already prepared. Okay, so this is the model. These two little extra meshes I'm going to put them to the side for the moment. So this is the model. This is the halo that we're going to use on top of our head. So as you can see, this mesh is really good to understand the placement and the scale of our model. And also it's going to, mainly it's going to work as an occluder. So if you rotate your head around, you will occlude this part of the halo, and so you can move freely. That will look right, that will look realistic. The parts that should be showing will be showing, and the parts that should be covered will be covered. So these little two pieces, we're going to use that for the halo, for the glow effect. So since this is a halo, I expect that it glows a little bit. So I came up with this little extra two pieces. So we're going to apply a texture here in additive mode or screen mode. We'll see which one works better. So it gives a fake glow effect, which works really well. And it's going to be light for our mobile performance. So since we're happy with our model, we're going to prepare our file for exporting. First thing, we want to make sure that this group that includes both the ring and the glow pieces are centered where we want it to be, because we're going to apply physics to this later. It's going to be super exciting and the effect is really cool. So we want to make sure that the pivot point is right where we need it. We want to make sure that our occluder head has clean transformation values. If it doesn't, we're going to freeze transformations and reset transformations. By the way, you can use any 3D program that you want. In this case, I'm using Maya. It doesn't really matter. You should use the software that you like. Anything will do. You just need to export as a FBX file. So from here, we're going to export both the occluder and the model. And we're going to call this halo.fbx. no animation in this case. We're going to have physics-based animation. I usually go with FBX 2012 or 11. Some of the newest ones, sometimes they have issues, especially when you have joints. So this is a safe bet, but you can try it yourself. Okay, so we should open the DPR Studio now. So first thing, I would change the resolution for the one that we want. In this case, it's going to be a vertical iPhone or smartphone filter. So let's choose it here. And second thing, I would change you can use this image or any image that you want, but I think it's easier to just turn on your webcam and use your face to rotate it around and to have a better look, a better sense of how it's going to look in the end. From here, you can import the FBX. The import legacy FBX is for our older tracking. So if you've been using DPR for a long time now, the older projects that you did will still work. You just need to import it as legacy FBX. So let's import the FBX. It's this one. Okay, and for now, let's hide the stuff that we don't need to see. Let's hide the occluder head, and let's hide the glow. Okay, so let's give this ring some color. Let's give it some shading. So we're going to use the Matcap Shader. The Matcap Shader is really cool because it's super cheap in terms of performance. It uses an image of a sphere capture the material properties and its environment. You can find a lot of Matcap textures online, and you can also learn to create your own. In this case, I created a gold cartoonish like Matcap. I'm going to import that here in the textures. So when we import a texture, you are asked if you want to compress it or not. If you have transparency, if you have alpha, for sure, just keep the PNG 100% quality. In this case, we want quality, but we don't need any transparency, so I'm going to compress it to JPEG, but keep it on maximum quality. If you have a heavier project with a lot of textures, you might want to consider heavier compression. Okay, so let's click here in this node, in the ring node. Sometimes if you're not sure of what is what, just click it and enable and disable just to make sure. Let's select this one. So the inspector updates for this particular node. In this case, we're going to change the shader. So we're going to choose the Matcap. You can also use Matcap with normal maps if you have more complex models with some roughness to it. So let's open the Matcap. And in the input texture, we're going to choose our Matcap texture. So it looks already really cool. In this case, I'm going to make it just a bit darker, a bit reddish, so it looks more, I don't know, so it looks a bit more realistic. So next step, I think it's going to be the glow effect. It looks really cool. So we're going to enable those again. And we're going to import the glow texture. It's this one. We want to keep the transparency, so we're going to keep it as a PNG. I'm going to show you just quickly how I did it. I did these two little pieces, and you can see the UVs. They are just planar, and they spread all over the 0, 1 window of the UVs. This was the texture I came up with. And as you can see, the edges are super smooth, so you won't notice it. And the center is really bright. So let's go back to the studio. Both of them, they have the same shader. This is also a really important step before you export. You want to make sure that all of your different meshes, they are organized, they are clean in terms of history, but also they have proper names for the shaders, for the materials. So let's move back to the studio and let's select one of these because they have the same material. We're going to change the shader for basic one for unlit texture and color in case we want to reduce the opacity. So let's import the glow here. Okay, so you can see the front one is showing, but the other one, the one that should be in the back, is not showing. That's because the culling mode is set to clockwise, so it only shows the front facing faces. In this case we want to show both sides of the faces, so we're going to turn it off. Just for sake of demonstration, if you select counterclockwise, this one will disappear and the other one will appear. Let's try it out. Yeah, so in this case we want to see everything, so we're going to set this to off. Okay, so as you can see that the edges of the mesh are occluding. This is expected because depth right is turned on. Let's turn it off. Now they are not, so you cannot see the end of the mesh. We also need to put this on front, especially this one, I guess. Yeah, this one should be on top of the ring, not behind it. So let's change the layer to layer 3. And now let's change the blend mode. This works just like Photoshop or any kind of image processing software. Let's change this to add or screen. Let's see which one works better. Screen, it's a bit softer, and have, it's a bit strong. Let's reduce the intensity. Okay, looks a bit better. We still can see some intersection here, so let's uncheck the depth test as well. And now, as you can see, the glow effect looks much better. Let's change this to screen. Okay, so as you can see, the glow effect looks really cool. I want to make sure it's subtle so it doesn't stand out. I'm going to make it a bit more transparent. So okay, it looks really cool, but as you can see, there's still no occlusion. Before that, we're going to add physics to the ring. So when you move your head, this will follow and you will see some follow through animation. We're going to apply it to this node because it contains both the ring and the glow pieces. We don't want to have our occluder head moving around. So let's select this one and have component simple pendulum physics. And now as you can see, it's moving around. If it's moving too much, you have a lot of options here to control it. So let's say you want to make it the initial acceleration less intense. We want to make the damping. The damping is what makes it starting to slow up. So the higher, the less it moves. So let's make this like this. And also you can limit the rotation. Let's say in X, we want to move it from -10 degrees to 10 degrees. So it has a short range of movement. So let's make the same changes in the Z axis. 10, 10. And now, as you can see, it moves just a little bit. Maybe we can crank this higher. 20, 20, 20, 20. Okay, yeah, now it's much better. It moves around, but it doesn't go away. It always sticks to the head. It's not going to go anywhere. The next step is going to add the occluder. So we're going to select this node, and here we're going to use the simple Morph shader. It's a shader that we have that's specific for this task. So if we scroll down, we'll find it here. And in the video texture, you want to use the camera as an input because we want to show our face here. It's not showing because we disabled it earlier. So let's bring it back. And as you can see, it's not working because the UV, it's by default set to disable. In this case, we want to use the camera footage as an input. So the correct UV space for this is camera texture UV2. The UV2 means that it's in camera space. This can be a bit confusing, but there are only 4 of them, so you can try it out to see which one works. In this particular scenario, it's this one. So as you can see, we already have some occlusion going on, but the halo is not in the correct layer. As you can see, the back one is still showing on front of my face. So let's fix that real quick. Let's go to the glow 2 and change it back to 1. So now, as you can see, our filter is working as intended. Of course, if you want to change, if you don't look the way the occluder is working, you can just change the transformation values, or you can go back to Maya and adjust the occluder to make it bigger, to cover more area. That's something that you're free to do and to make it look much better. The purpose of this tutorial is to show the concepts, so we're not going to do that. We're going to jump to the overlay. So I prepared an animation for the overlay. Okay. As you can see, it's a image, it's a PNG sequence, and you have to keep in mind that you should use this nomenclature system so the studio can open and understand it. It's going to look something like this. As you can see, I purposely made a black background, so using blending modes we will remove it and we only show the white parts on top. So this way we save a lot of space, not using PNG with transparency. So let's import it to the studio. We add animation and we simply go to the folder where the animation is and we press open. Now, since we don't need to use transparency because we're going to use blending modes, we're going to compress it to JPEG 60%, for example. You can change it if you have some noticeable quality loss. Let's try this one first. So now we have our animation loaded here. We will need something to put it on. You can import it from Maya, from a 3D software. In this case, we'll use the Studio built-in option to create quads. Let's add a quad. So in this case, we're going to need two different kinds of trackers. We're going to have the ring, the occluder, and the halo. Those will be driven by the head, by the face, right? And the overlay is going to be on the camera. So in this case, we're going to select the root node and we're going to change the space for camera space. Okay, now we see the quad, but we don't see the rest. So for now, let's make this transparent. Okay, where is the ring? It's not here because it's also being driven by the camera at the moment. So in this case, we're going to use an add component to fix that. Let's select the occluder and add a component, face position. Same thing here. Okay, so now it's in the right place. And now we can go to the quad and change the shader. A unlit texture. And let's select our animation. And now let's change the blend mode to add. Let's change the layer to overlay. Now we're going to add a component here in this quad to make the animation run and loop. We're going to add component, play animation continuously. Okay, here I think it looks good, but in case it's too fast or too slow, you can come here and adjust. You can make it slower, or you can make it crazy fast if you want to, but we'll stick to 30. From here, you can just change the transformations so it covers more or less area. If you think it's too much, you can just come here and change the shader to texture and color. And here you can just make it less obvious. Yeah, this is basically it. We have a complete filter. Of course, if you want to make it look really good and ready for production, we want to fix this occluder head, but that's something that you can tweak for yourself and make it look as good as you want. Once you're happy with your tweaking, you simply go to File, Export Model, and we're going to save our halo filter. It's going to be a single file with everything on it. From here you can use this file to import it to your own app, to your own game. It's going to be ready to go. So yeah, I hope that you liked this tutorial. I hope that you learn how to create your own filter, and let's move to some more advanced stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.